This is what you do for a living. So you could probably handle this. Take your own advice that you're giving your clients. If you've gone to this point in your career where growth is your problem, then it probably means you're pretty good at giving advice. So treat yourself like you might a client and kind of remember you got this.
Welcome to Deduct This, powered by ProConnect Tax. This is where tax professionals come together to share ideas, experiences, and fresh perspectives to help you grow your practice and your future. We're glad you're here. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome to the Deduct This podcast with Carrie and Lexi, and I'm Carrie.
And I'm Lexi. We're starting this series all about making your next growth move and what that means to different firms, not just in theory, but in real life.
So today we're going to talk to Liz Hanley. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. So we want to talk to you today because we heard kind of through the grapevine from some of our peers that they had some great conversations with you and that you really took the time, the quiet time right after tax season where we know it's kind of crazy for everybody to really rethink about how you work and how you serve clients and took it as an opportunity to grow your revenue without burning out. So let's start by can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your firm?
Yeah. I started, so I have a firm, Liz's All Biz. We've been at it for, oh my gosh, I think 15 years. Yeah, and some of my employees have been with me from the very beginning. My tax manager has been with me for 14 years. We are an all-women firm. Yeah, it's been great. We've originally based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We serve clients mainly or mostly in the arts, some unusual clients. We mostly serve underserved communities, but we are now officially bi-coastal. And so we serve folks mostly in New York and California and some other major U.S. metropolitan areas.
Oh,
That's
I love
amazing.
that.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
I want to hear more. What moves have you made to get to this point that you guys are at and dig in deeper to that?
Well, I think when I started my business, I actually came from a finance background in beauty. And I really just wanted to work for folks that I cared about what they were doing. I loved the work, but I was very, let's say, mixed about the folks that I was working for and helping them make money. It was fine. But I wanted to work with folks that I really cared about. And for me, I'm actually a retired musician. And so that's where my contacts were. So I immediately started working in the music space. And so, yeah, I just kind of started working, like I said, with businesses that I cared about. And there's only kind of a certain amount of folks that serve that community and that really know it. So I work in music. I work a lot in photography and film and other kind of creative endeavors. And what I found was that people were so hungry for someone that really understood the industry and that was also going to give them really good advice. And that just kind of came to it without judgment. And so it just kind of word of mouth. It's just kind of grown from there, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
I love that. It's interesting. I've been talking to tax and accounting pros for years and years. And it's always interesting to me how people end up in the niches that they end up in. And it always typically, not always, but a lot of times it does stem from either a family member did something or they were in an industry or there was someone that they knew that they had a great contact with. And little by little, as they really learned about that industry, there's a natural progression that happens because you learn the nuances for that particular industry to figure out what are the puts and takes that you need to do that can help other people. And then it's interesting how that it naturally grows, right? That's absolutely amazing. I love that.
And I think what the other thing is starting to work in the arts. What I realized is it was really getting comfortable with not cookie cutter businesses, where I would look up the IRS regs and I would just be I don't even know how situation even fits into this. And, when I started, it was just great I thought that was fun, right? Like I had to call the IRS a lot and just be like, well, in this situation, like what would this be considered or what wouldn't this be considered? And so I think once I got kind of through a fear of that there wasn't an exact IRS reg or there wasn't like an exact thing for this and you had to kind of do some interpretation, then it just kind of opened up new horizons for me and kind of made me like a little unafraid to go into other artistic fields.
That's amazing. I love calling the IRS is fun. I don't think anyone's ever said that.
Well, we have a kind of a game almost, not like a game, like a little bit of a competition among the tax team where we, come up with like the weirdest deduction that we've seen come through. Like each year, and then it's just like, okay, well, where does it belong on the return, and so it's pretty great, I mean,
oh my
I think,
gosh.
like,
what is it? What's the weirdest?
Okay, so like the top one, I think from like the last couple of years was I had a music photographer. So they shoot musicians and celebrities. And then they sent us their books. And she calls me and she's just like, okay, I don't know where to put. I rented a baby monkey and I sent it on a tour bus for this band because they gave me extra time and, I got more exposure. And so, where does the rental of the baby monkey? I was like, well, I'm like, why did she's like, well, it was like a thank you. And I was like, great. So yeah, definitely called the IRS. I was just.
That's hilarious. I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. So pretty, it's fun. It's fun. So they definitely keep me on my toes though, so no boring days. Definitely at work.
I love that. All right. So we just got out of tax season. We know that's crazy. Everyone's working tons of time, all these hours and whatnot. So what do you like when you think of getting out of tax season? Like, where's your head at typically?
I mean, the first thing is just to take a break and kind of renew and, touch grass, like take a nap, like drink some water, like reintroduce myself to my family who's like wondering if I still live here. So that's like step one. I encourage my team to do the same. So we usually do like a little bit of reduced hours just right after. And then afterwards, we actually immediately turn into planning. So we immediately go into starting to talk to people about Q2 estimates. We work with folks all year round. That is actually part of how, part of how we do business. So we immediately kind of turn into that and just checking back in with folks. What happened in Q1? What's it looking like? And what I find is by kind of spreading that work out through the year, it makes our tax season so much just easier because by the time we get there in the winter, we already know what to expect because we've been talking to these people all year. We've been giving them advice all year. So we're just really getting caught up on Q4. We're waiting for forms to roll in. The client knows what to expect.
That's awesome.
And just especially because, I work with folks that are in volatile industries, if we're just going to be real. So I can't put them on extension because I don't, we need to know how much they're going to owe. We can't be paying interest on any of that. So we just immediately start.
That's great. I want to dig in a little bit more to that as well. Like, when did you make that shift in like the beginning of building your firm? And like, a lot of clients, it takes time to bring them along that journey and start thinking that way, right? And because they're looking at you as their advisor and when to start those conversations and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about when you started doing that? And like, did you do packages? How did you price for that? How did you position that to your customers and your clients?
So I've actually always done it that way. So I actually will not work with anybody who just wants to send me forms at tax season. Like, I'm just like, I'm not for you. That's like, there's a lot of like amazing tax professionals out there. That's not what I'm doing. We're probably not a good fit. So I do my pricing in packages, and that includes working with folks on a quarterly basis. That's the only service I offer.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's wonderful. Go ahead, Carrie. I see you wanted to follow up there.
Yeah, I'm curious about it, right? Because I
Yeah.
hear this all the time from people of like, they do tons of returns and they want to move more towards that advisory and that year-long relationship that you're saying that you have.
Yeah.
Did your previous firm have that? And is that where you learned it? Or did you learn from them what you don't want to do and what you want your firm to be?
Here's so much fun. I didn't work for a previous firm. I started off just myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that, like, I will, just to be very real about it, there were some things that, like, oh, it would have been easier if I would have worked for someone else. Like, there probably would have been things that I would have done better at the beginning. But in a way, there was just nobody that was doing what I wanted to do. So I kind of had to just start and, like, learn as I go. And it was both the best thing that happened in my business and sometimes the hardest thing, especially maybe in that first 5 to 7 years, was like, I felt like I was reinventing the wheel. But even when I would reach out to colleagues, and I would just, I worked in a building downtown in San Francisco, and there was a ton of other accountants on my floor. And some of them who had practices for a very long time. And every once in a while, I would just like want to run something, but I'd be like, what do you think about this thing? And what I realized is they never even heard of the stuff that I was dealing with. And so that was, then I just really kind of like, that's when we call the IRS all the time. All the time we call the IRS because we just have such weird things that we were coming up. And now, I mean, I think this long in, I have a community of folks that I work with or the colleagues that have dealt with some of the situations that I deal with in some of these specialized industries. But it was, like I said, it was just kind of it was, like I said, it was a blessing to not know what I didn't know. Right. Because I just thought, well, this is how I'm going to do it. I didn't know you could do it. I understood you could do it a different way, but I was just like, I just never did it.
So what were some of the surprises along the way? I mean, you're building this company. Sounds like you jumped right into knowing that you need to do planning year round. What were surprises for you? And like, also just like what did you have to do to like adjust to your clients' needs?
I mean, I think, which was funny, it was building the company, right? So here I am giving business owners advice and also building my own company, right? So originally it was just me, and then I had like an admin, and then like I had like a lady that kind of helped with some bookkeeping and doing some, you know what I mean? And it just kind of gradually grows. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you've got like 20 plus employees and they're in different states and you're managing HR issues and you're like trying to figure out like, because technically we're kind of a seasonal business, right? So how do you manage cash flow? And so it was really interesting for me to be, like I said, giving folks advice, but then also having to kind of learn those things by myself on my own as well.
So you touched on something that I feel like a lot of your peers feel as they're starting to scale, and whatever scale means to them is that, kind of that, oh my gosh, like this is overwhelming. Sometimes you feel stuck. What is like the one or two pieces of advice to keep going or that you would give your old self back then that now and to your peers?
Number one, don't panic. You know what I mean? Like, don't panic, right? Like we tell that to our clients all the time, like sit back, if you're coming up against something that feels super tough, like remember you have the skills, you help people as your job to work through this. So just go back and just remember, like you're panicking because it's your business personally, but this is what you do for a living. So you could probably handle this.
Yeah.
And so once the panic subsides, I think that like that for me is most of it. And then just really thinking about planning, right? So, they always say like, the shoemaker's children have no shoes. Do tax planning for yourself, do cash flow planning for yourself. And I have been guilty of this so many years where I was just like, I'm telling my client, like, take your own advice that you're giving your clients.
That's
and
awesome.
That is like, it just like kind of remember that you kind of, how this goes. If you've gone to this point in your career where growth is a thing that you're like dealing with, like that's your problem, then it probably means you're pretty good at giving advice and helping businesses. I work a lot in the business space. So just remember that you probably know this one, right? So treat yourself like you might a client, and like kind of remember you got this.
I
Love it.
love
Great
that.
advice.
I agree. It's kind of like they say, therapists have therapists, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you need to like talk. You need to go through these kind of things and understand that you're going through them as well. Like, right? You can't just think of these people as anomalies, right? You are a business running a business, and you're helping businesses, right? And so it is interesting. I think that's great advice. If we could only talk to our younger selves and get through some of the things that we would like to
Right.
get.
I used to even do the thing where I would I would be doing like looking, analyzing like a bunch of financials or looking at a bunch of tax returns, even taking our own business and like kind of taking off the top of the name and just kind of putting it in a stack and like seeing what I saw, and just like,
Right.
yeah.
I think that's
You
great.
have to you got to trick yourself sometimes. You have to
You
trick
do.
yourself.
You do. You do. I trick myself all the time. I make lists that I already have done tasks so I can check stuff off. So I can
Oh,
feel
yeah,
like I've
that's a fun
accomplished
one.
things.
You're
which
like,
is
I'm
it
so
absolutely makes
accomplished.
3 check marks already. I love it. I love it. So now when you think about these clients, right, I can imagine, right, you did say that this is volatile. You can imagine there's massive peaks in some of these artists and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
big
insane.
happens in their life.
Yeah.
And so as you go through the year, if you start seeing people drastically change the amount of conversations that they need to have with you, do you go back to them and sort of go, hey, before we were talking and it was, once a month or whatnot, and that was, I charged you this much. Do you have to go back and sort of renegotiate with people to say, I do packages, like I need to move you into the bigger package because the way your business is going, we need to have more conversations. Like, how does that work?
At this point, not really. I would say earlier in my career, yes. But that's mostly, I think, just because I've been doing it so long and I have like a sense of what industries are volatile, right? So like all my film people and photo people in like California, when like AB5 came out, like I knew that was going to be huge. So then like they automatically just got moved, like I was like, do you do business in California? If so, now this is what we're doing. So I really try to keep on top of it and keep on top of trends, because those conversations when you have to go back in the middle of the year and be like, I'm so sorry, I have to change your pricing. Like they don't want to hear it. You don't want to say it. Like my poor admin, so many calls she has to do about this. So yeah, it's better to like, sometimes it's just unavoidable, but if you can just price right from the gate.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. The other thing that's awesome that I love to do is that if you price a little high because you think you're going to have more conversations, and then you go back and you're just like, actually, Susie,
Oh yeah.
we'd just be like, we didn't need it. I can give you a little bit, like, oh, people love that. So
I bet.
Who wouldn't? Who
it doesn't
wouldn't,
happen
right?
all the time, but fair, obviously, we got to keep the lights on and keep all these ladies, paid, but the sense of fairness is also really important in pricing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You're a large firm. You've got stuff going on. You've got man, like I said,
but here we are. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Let's go into technology and some tools.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep everyone organized? What are you using for your tax software?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that in your tech stack for us.
So I use Intuit ProConnect.
Okay.
I have used it for you actually call it ITO.
Yes.
We've used it for so long. We were like old school.
Love
school.
It.
Yeah. So we were like early adopters to cloud-based. Again, for my business model, I think I mentioned that we are an all-women firm.
Yeah.
And so doing this as a job or as a career, I don't even know. Doing this has been able to afford a very nice life for myself and my family, especially at this point. And so I specifically recruit and train women, especially mothers. And so, which is important for my tech stack because it means everything must be cloud-based. You need to be able to complete returns when your kid is home with pink eye and your water heater broke off, has exploded.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And so from the jump, even though we actually don't currently have offices, we've moved totally online at this point. But from the very beginning, I've had it always set up so that all of my team could work remotely just anytime they needed
It's
to.
fantastic.
So we, from the very beginning, always had folks in QuickBooks Online. We used ProConnect. We actually recently moved into Carbon.
Okay. Yeah, for your practice management.
Yep.
Yeah, that has been great just because I realized I was like, we're actually like really big now. Like this is a lot. And, you can kind of get through, especially so many of my team have been with me for so long. They're just kind of holding it all in their minds. And then some of my tax team started to start their families. And I realized that we were relying, which was fine because they'd been with us for 10 plus years, that somebody just knew the thing. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. I was like, this process needs to be documented.
Right.
We're going to need a lot more, a more robust system here. So that's kind of currently the tech stack that we're using. That's kind of the core. We have started to use, for this season, we're starting to branch into Intuit Tax Advisor. Okay.
Awesome.
For working on some of our planning. And so I think I mentioned before, we kind of only work with folks that we do planning and estimates throughout the year. But one of the things that I realized is we are a bunch of ladies. We love to talk to people. No problem. We would love to do some math. We would love to plan your taxes. We would love to do that. Not a bunch of writers. No, not a bunch of writers. We would love to not write an email. We would love to not type out a tax plan. Also, and my staff will tell you, also my admin, awful speller. Just literally the worst. Kind of embarrassing, actually.
Same girl, same.
Yeah. So, I mean, I swear half of my admin's job is just like retyping
editing
emails. But you know what? God bless her. God bless her. She really puts up with me. So where this kind of comes in is we're so busy and we have so many clients and we insist on doing this planning with folks. What we've really found was it was a great way to present to the client what we wanted to say.
Absolutely.
Right? Without having to like tippy type out, this is why I think you should do the 401k for the business. You know what I mean? When you have to write 800 of those emails, you're just like, oh, how short can I make this?
So
the client needs more information and I can't do a call every time.
I love that. I want you to unpack that more because what is that? I want people listening. That's a big perk of Intuit Tax Advisor is the client report. So can you talk a little bit about how you use it? Because I think that would be so helpful for peers.
So a lot of times you go in and they'll have like different tax strategies. So for the most part, we kind of already know what tax strategies we want them to use. Every once in a while, there'll be something in there that like kind of we didn't think about. But hopefully at this point in my career, we're like, we already kind of have them when we go in. But what's wonderful is it has an explanation of how to implement that strategy. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the things, having done this for so long, I know for myself and my tax team, like I deal a lot with folks that maybe don't have a background in finance or maybe don't feel comfy around taxes or books. But you kind of forget that they don't know, right? And so those detailed explanations of what the strategy is and how to implement it and kind of what it would mean are really, really important to the client. And if you're just in a busy mode and you kind of forget to explain that part, it can be really disorienting and kind of upsetting for a client. And one of the things that I notice is like, and I'll say it for myself, nobody likes to feel dumb. You know what I mean? Like they want to feel informed. And so if you can give them that information, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for you. Here's some background about it. And then we can come to the conversation and they already know a little bit about that. So that then like the questions that they're asking you and the discussions that you are having are at a different level. And it helps them to feel more confident entering the conversation. It saves you as the accountant time. So,
Absolutely.
There's only
well
so many
said.
times you can explain an I-401k and then you're just like, I can't.
I love that. So are you thinking about it as, right, you said this is new this year, right? You obviously know the strategy.
Yeah.
And I do love that idea of, we've had small businesses in my home for years. And I would always be surprised because I'd hear about something, but I'd sometimes be embarrassed to ask exactly what it was,
Mhm.
or not
Mhm.
realize that myself actually has to do work in order to implement a tax strategy, right? I have to fill out
Yes.
certain forms. I have to do it a certain time of year, et cetera, as opposed to like, I'm like, can't we just find something like that on my tax return? And they're like, no, that's not how that works. I don't just click a button and all
Yeah.
of a sudden there's a
Yeah.
strategy, right? So having that explanation, I think, is really helpful, being on the other side of it, right? I'm not a tax pro. The other thing is, are you thinking about these forms, right? So it gives the explanation, but are you thinking of it as sort of like it's a way to gut check about the things that you could do, or the things that maybe you punt for other years? Like, here's what you could possibly bring. Do you just bring the stuff that you want them to do that year? Or do you kind of go, here's the menu of things that we could work on for you? What do you think about that?
Depends on the client, right? So I really try to curate it for folks. There's some of my clients get really overwhelmed. And so if I send them like 7 things, like they're going to have a nervous breakdown, and we're going to have like, like a 2-hour call. And like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So it really, I really try to take a custom approach to every client. And there's some clients that want to know like all things that are possible, and they're going to get everything.
Yeah.
But then there's some clients who can really only probably talk about 2 or 3 things a year, right? We're going to like baby step our way into some tax strategies.
Yeah, I can imagine that I'm the person that wants all of them. And then I want to dig through and be like, what can I save the most on?
Yeah, which is great. But yeah, then there's some people who are just like, I know you explain it to me every year, but can we go over it again? I was like, I would love to.
Yeah.
So you're just going to pick out like the couple big winners for them. And you're going to, because the other thing is I think it's so important for folks to really understand some of those strategies, even if it's just at a high level. It helps them to feel more engaged in the process. And I think it's also, advisory is an education, right? You want to educate the client. And so if they're not understanding what you're advising them to do, what are we really doing?
Yeah, that's a great
can't
point too,
recognize the
because
value.
what do you do with clients that are not recognizing the value? How do you handle that?
Well, find them another home.
I was just gonna say, be honest, and that's okay. That's okay. It may
that's
not
fine,
be
because you know what?
right, a right partnership.
It took me many years kind of getting into it to just realize like, I'm not for them. And there's so many wonderful folks out there. And I was like, this is really important. Like, this is a really important relationship, especially working with small business and medium-sized business. Like, this is one of the biggest bills you're going to get, right? Is your tax bill. And so you really need to understand it. And this needs to be like a clear channel. And also, I spend so much time with my clients. If there's like something weird and like I'm having a weird situation, like, we'll just move on. Like, you should find somebody that's a better fit, because I don't want to feel tortured. I don't want to be dreading calls with clients. Not interested in that at all. And also, it's not really serving the client. So, my admin after every tax season, she kind of gets a list, and I'm just like, let these people be free.
Yeah, we're breaking up. It's not you. It's me. Or it's not me, too, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that saying is, right?
Go forth and find your people.
Please,
yeah,
please.
It's not.
But it's
not me. Yeah,
right, because it is a relationship, and the closer that you can I love what you said, that you know certain people, and you know them well enough to know how much or how little that you need to present to them before they're going to get overwhelmed, and they still feel the value. Because if every single conversation you go in with trepidation, or you're like, oh God, this is not going to go well, right? That's exhausting, and no one wants that. But it truly is a relationship. It's not just a business. Like, it's not transactional, I should say, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, like when I started Liz is All Biz, I really wanted to work with
I love
folks
that.
I cared about.
I love the name.
Me too. I love the name.
All right, you want to hear the story behind the name?
Yes.
I am divorced and remarried.
Okay.
And my ex-husband used to say it to me. It's not a kind. He would be like, "You're just all biz. Just like, you're all biz." And I was like, actually, yeah, that's actually the coolest part about me. I was like, I'm gonna let you go, sir. And I'm gonna keep that name.
Oh my gosh, that's
and
awesome.
incorporate it. It's pretty, so
that's great.
What you gonna do?
Oh my gosh. Liz, thank you so much for your time today. This has been not only just so informative, but fun. Congratulations on your growth. And again, just on behalf of Intuit, thank you for being such a valuable, like, and valued customer. I mean, it's so cool to hear how ProConnect has grown with you as you've grown, and QuickBooks, and now you're, adopting Intuit Tax Advisor. We're just so thankful for your business. And Carrie, you want to jump in here and just say a few things?
I love this. It's so fun talking to you. It's always fun to do these podcasts, and we love talking to the pros, and we always get little interesting tidbits, but I just love that, woman-owned business and really working with moms and bi-coastal and SaaS software. I mean, all these things just get me so excited as Lexi and I fit in all those spaces besides being the pro. But thank you we don't do that part, but thank you for spending the time with us and, taking the break after tax season and really, taking a step back, reevaluate, understanding your tools, your technology, and having those great relationships with customers. So thank you for telling your story. We appreciate you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, ladies.
Awesome.
Have a great one.
Okay.
Thanks for being part of Deduct This, powered by ProConnect Tax. If today's conversation gave you something new to think about, visit accountants.intuit.com for more insights and resources made for professionals like you. We'll be right here, helping you turn expertise into opportunity.